Welcome, everybody. We are here. We are back as always. Like I told you, you listened. You came back. Yes, we are the Shaded Pixels podcast, the show where we break down video games to their shadings and pixels, topic by topic. Ew.
We will never get it right. We will never get it right.
Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. We finally have somebody famous on the show with us that is not one of these other two fellas over here. Hey. I'm sorry. Yes, I am your co-host, BJ Brown, Bunny 3000, along with to my
there you go. You got it.
Other direction over in this direction. We have Esteban Cuevas.
Hi. I'm so excited to have David Cage here.
And of course the one and only, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, over there in that direction.
His name is actually Shawn Richards, not actually Shawn Michaels.
Michaels, you hush, all right? All right? That's Shawn Michaels, everybody. Say hello.
Well, hello.
He's just a sexy boy.
Sexy boy.
And ladies and gentlemen, we have the honorary guest, Julian Titus, with us today. From what is your podcast name again? Because I forgot.
It is Nerds Without Pants.
Nerds Without Pants. Julian Titus, welcome to the show. And you'll have to excuse Esteban for forgetting the name in the podcast. I tried to get him hip to the whole thing.
I'll have you know.
Your co-host, okay? Let's be professional here, people. Professional. Okay.
I will have you know that in honor of Julian being here, I am now wearing pants.
Ew.
Oh, and I am wearing pants because I didn't want to offend on.
It's okay. I'm wearing shorts. See, there's a difference.
Shorts aren't pants.
Yeah, pants on pants on pants on pants. But Julian has come to us with the question of all questions that he felt like would be perfect for our community as well as his to kind of go over and discuss today. Julian, would you like to hip us the game today?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me before we even get started. But yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and it actually brought it up recently on an episode of Nerds Without Pants. So if any of my listeners are watching tonight, I'm going to tread over a little bit of this. And we've actually got a friend of the show who does a show called Hack Thought Podcast, I know he's listening right now, Mike Fallick, and his whole podcast is about the idea of groupthink. And I was thinking about that in regards to gamers, because I think as a whole, as a community, and I kind of hate using the word community for stuff, but we tend to get into this giant mob around certain ideas and certain thoughts that are just, once they are out there, they just propagate and they become gospel, and you cannot say boo about it. You can't, if you try to disagree with that at all, you're just shouting into the void. Like nobody, if at best you're going to be like just kind of looked sideways at, but at worst people are just going to be like straight up insulting you and disrespecting you and, you know, calling you crazy and stuff like that. And there's so many different types of games now, and there's so many different types of gamers that, you know, there's many different viewpoints that are valid. And I think that lately we've all gotten into this rut of just like having this mass opinion on various subjects, and that's kind of what I was getting at for this.
Holy crap, are we talking politics or gaming?
Dude, these days it's kind of the same thing.
I mean, he's not wrong. I mean, and also
I blame it on internet muscles, but hey, that's the world we live in nowadays, you know.
I definitely think the internet has gone a long way to kind of enforcing this type of mindset. Because you can so easily get into your own echo chamber, right? And only look for people who agree with your point of view.
Yes.
And I love having discussions with people that don't have share my point of view. Esteban and I have gotten into it many times over the years. Yeah. It's never gotten into a shouting match or anything like that.
No. I think
you're not doing it right then.
It's always been a very respectful conversation, and I've always appreciated that. I remember like there's an epic comment thread on, I think, a preview I wrote of Asura's Wrath over at pixelbit.com where I write, where he and I were just going back and forth on, what this game was purported to be and versus what it was, and if that makes it good or not. And, like definitely we have completely different opinions on that, but that doesn't mean that they're not both valid,
Yeah.
That's right, because it's not my opinion. That's the only one that matters.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. But yeah, I know what Julian's talking about. I have a really good example recently about something like this. There's like this groupthink kind of idea about The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, and that I think the prevailing opinion is that it's not one of the better ones.
Yeah, I would say lately I've heard it more referred to as being like the bad one.
Yeah.
like it's I think when it first came out, it was like, okay, this is a solid Zelda game. And then since then, it's just like fallen off a cliff.
Yeah, and everyone was like shocked. I remember everyone got up in arms about that GameSpot review that was an 8.9. And it was like, why not just give it the 9? It's 0.1 away, and what the hell? And why wouldn't you give it just the 9? And yeah. I remember I got that game at launch with the Wii, played it, and I didn't play it all the way through, and it just didn't grab me. And then as time went on, and I just never went back to it, there was more of the prevailing opinion of, oh, it's not that good, and things are bad about it, and, like we were saying, that's the prevailing opinion. And I kind of went along with that, and if it ever came up in discussion, I'm like, well, reviews now aren't too happy with the prevailing opinions that it copies too much from Ocarina, and I was essentially just saying things that I heard.
Right.
Because
instead of having your own like opinion and thought about it.
The way that I was justifying that was that I had tried to play the game and I hadn't, latched onto it, and I went, oh well, this must have been why. But then about 3 years ago, I just got it in my brain that I wanted to try it. I wanted to see for myself. It was 2015, and I was playing the Wii version. And after I had played through it, like I actually played through it, went through the whole game. It was like 50 hours long.
Ooh.
And
Zelda.
It is my favorite 3D Zelda.
Wow.
The only problem I remember having with it on the Wii was that it was the Wii, and so it was a whole bunch of motion control stuff. I remember after playing it, I'm like,
slap.
Look, there's a lot of games on the Wii where I can be like, the problem is that it's on the Wii.
Yeah, no, Wii Sports. Come on, man. It was on the Wii.
Donkey Kong Country Returns. You have to shake it like this to roll, and there's like problems like that. But it was like just the motion controls, and I remember afterwards like trying to mess with Dolphin and trying to get it to work for the GameCube version because I wanted just normal controls. But then the HD version came out, and that solved all my problems.
Right.
And
of course.
I remember thinking, wow, I would have like missed out on this game that I actually adore now. I love that game. I love the way that the characters are told, and I love the dungeon design, and I absolutely just treasure the way that Hyrule is designed in that way with, like stuff actually in it. And I wouldn't have known any of this if I had just listened to everybody else like I had been doing. And that's something that I usually don't do, but it's just what I'm trying to get at is this kind of mentality can kind of take away good experiences from you. It can affect people who usually don't even do that, just because you get kind of... It can be kind of hard to have your own opinion about things sometimes. And I think that's why groupthink is also so prevalent, because it's sort of the easy way out.
Well, one of the things I've kind of noticed as of late, as I've gotten older, I kind of have to recognize whose voice it is that I'm listening to when it comes to a particular opinion. Because we kind of touched on this before the show started, that your gaming mood, for me at least, half the time ends up being similar to like your musical mood. different times in your life or different times of the day, different moods or whatever will change how that piece of art affects you or how you receive that piece of art. And that a lot of times when you're searching for something like that, you tend to go to that same source that told you about it. You know what I mean? So you'll go to that same reviewer or that same site that typically has the same kind of voice when they look or go across, a certain game type or a certain game or whatever. Just because I don't want to necessarily say that that's the voice of the majority or anything, but that's just the voice that seems as if it caters a bit to some of your likes and dislikes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that I've kind of had to go in that direction because, as we all know, we can't buy everything, we can't play everything, and at times you kind of want that voice sometimes before you get that investment in there. So, I've had to be a lot more careful with what voices I take in when I start looking for opinions or something like that in order to give me insight on what the game is, how it plays, and whether or not it's like something that I used to like,
Oh, absolutely.
I think that's kind of the way that it's kind of harder to do now than I think it used to be, because the number of voices there are out there, and a lot of times I've even found a lot of people won't even go to a site. They'll just go to Twitter and then they'll just put in the name of the game, and next thing you know, they'll just look at what everybody's tweeting, and that will be their review. Those are like, oh, everybody on Twitter said this game is trash, just like you said, Julian. Oh, they hate this game. I'm like, oh no, I ain't touching that thing with a 10-foot pole. Twitter said that it was horrible, so I ain't going after it. You know what I mean? So it's hard. It's hard. And like we were just saying, just like with politics, you have to be aware of what voice it is, and it's not necessarily that you don't want to listen to another voice that has a differing opinion than yours, but a lot of times, so that I know that whatever voice it is that I'm listening to or whatever has similar interests or whatever, it'll give me a good feeling before I go in there. And then, just like Julian said, the best thing to do right after you do that is go to the complete opposite. Get one review or one reviewer or whatever that is going to have your opinion, and then go look for the exact opposite. And then use both of them. Don't just look for the one, that gives your voice. Look for the exact opposite, so that you can have some kind of contrast and figure out for yourself. That's what it should be about. Figure out for yourself whether or not it's good or not.
Isn't it hard though when you have like a game that's like completely critically acclaimed, like The Last of Us or something like that?
Let me talk to you about The Last of Us. I think you were still at Pixelbit when I reviewed that, Esteban, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. How dare I?
I
probably would have given it the same thing.
I hadn't played the game yet. I believe we needed that.
Yeah, we still had anonymous commenters on at this point, right? And people just like came out of the woodworks to drag me for this game. And the crux of my issue with the game, and again, 4 out of 5 stars is a great score. I thoroughly enjoyed The Last of Us, but you're talking about this post-apocalyptic game that's a survival game where you are always like, bullets are always at a premium for you, right? Like you pick up a gun, it's got like 2 bullets in it, right? And you're always scrounging for like 1 or 2 more. But then you get into these protracted firefights with NPCs that have like this unlimited
amount of ammo.
The rules don't apply to them.
It's like, how much cooler would that game have been if, like, when you see a pistol for the first time, it's like 10 hours in, and you're like, oh shit, like this guy's got a gun, right?
And not a bow and arrow.
Exactly, yeah. And I was like, it doesn't really mesh well with the whole stealth / survival aspect when you're at the disadvantage, but then the NPCs do not have that disadvantage. And it's not that the game was too hard for me, but that's what everybody harped on. It's like, oh well, you just didn't play it right. And it's like, no, this is like both from a narrative.
I know I didn't play it right.
game mechanics standpoint, just kind of wonky.
Sometimes also it got to a point where it felt like trial and error.
Yeah.
And like I was gonna say, I hadn't played the game yet when I believe you reviewed it. I have played the game since. Your score is too high.
Yeah, mushroom heads drove me crazy, man. I couldn't get over it. I admitted it. I was like, I played the game wrong. I absolutely loved the gameplay that I had, but the stupid mushroom heads drove me crazy, and I ran out of shanks when there was like 5 stupid mushroom heads around, and I turned the game off. I was like, yeah, I played enough. This was fun. Bye.
I'm actually on, like, I've played Last of Us. I got it, got it remastered. I played it, and I absolutely loved it. But here's one thing that I think a lot of people don't do when it comes to groupthink. It's just like, okay, Julian, you don't agree with my opinion on this game. All of this groupthink can be destroyed with one word. Explain. If you sit down and listen to other people's explanation about these opinions and everything, then you have a nice casual discussion instead of saying, what?
Exactly.
You're trash. Yeah. Trash. And all you really need to do is like, well, I wrote an entire review. You could read my explanation about all this instead of going down, seeing 4 out of 5 stars, and immediately calling me trash.
Yeah, and like you say, Shawn, like maybe we don't agree completely on that aspect of the game, but that also shouldn't imply that I didn't like the game. I really liked the game, and I brought that up before the show because one of the things that got me thinking about this was the new God of War, because I enjoyed that game, but I don't like it nearly as much as 99% of the people who reviewed it did. I'm playing it. I'm not seeing I'm seeing these glaring errors in like game mechanics and stuff like this where I'm like, y'all, like how like this camera is actively bad and it affects the game. Like I don't know how you gave that a pass. But also that doesn't mean that I hated the game, right? Like I told you guys, if I reviewed this game for Pixelbit, I would probably end up giving it like a 3.5 out of 5 stars based on just my opinions on it.
This is God of War.
God of War, yes. That does not mean that I hated God of War. It means that I think God of War is a good game, right?
To be fair, I would give God of War a boy out of 10.
There you go. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's fantastic. It's not Game of the Year. It's very good.
Yeah, and that's another point too. Going back to The Last of Us, if you actually look at it, me and BJ would be on like one side of it, and you and Shawn, Julian and Shawn would be on the other side, and yet all 4 of us would probably still have disagreements about it, regardless of the sides that we're on. Because me and BJ are like, BJ's like, I don't think I play this game right. I personally think that The Last of Us is actually a bad game with a great story. Shawn thinks it's incredible. Julian thinks it's good to great. So
trash. Explain.
Why'd you hate the game, Julian? Why'd you give us 4 stars?
So even if you're on technically the same side of the coin, you're going to have disagreements, and that's why groupthink it's too simple for something that's ultimately a complex and very subjective kind of topic. Or at least that's what it typically pertains to. Excuse me.
And another thing, like kind of going off of this groupthink, of course, like BJ said, not only deals with just video games, it's more or less outside any type of form of art. But I think with the type of internet media that we're going on with, not just this, but you can take a look at like gaming sites now, and there's groupthink going on those. Like people are just like, oh, IGN gave it this. Well, IGN's always paid off by Call of Duty. They always give it a good score. You don't need to worry about them. Listen to these other sites. Or if maybe GameSpot gives it a little review, they say, oh, well, they can't be trusted. They always hate this developer. It's things like that also kind of hurts the gaming industry whenever you have that type of almost toxic groupthink where they kind of thrust opinions onto you before you can even form one for yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That brings up like one of my, I don't think he writes anymore, but a very controversial figure in games media was Arthur Geese, who used to work for Polygon, used to work for a lot of sites. I listened to him on Rebel FM for years. I should resubscribe. I had to cut a bunch of podcasts recently, and that one didn't make the cut. But I'd listened to him for like, almost a decade, right? And he has very strong political opinions that make their way into his reviews. But at the same time, judging a game based on its mechanics and its value, he's very fair. You just have to kind of, if you don't agree with his politics, just take that out. Like Bayonetta 2, I remember, was like one of his more controversial ones. So I think he dinged it for the sexuality, right? And it's like, but if you just take that paragraph out and read the rest of the review, that gives you all you need to know, right? And it's like, okay, like for me personally, I can add like a full like star to a star and a half, or maybe I guess they were doing numbers, of course. So I guess like a full like number up from what his review was, and that'll give me my score because I know what he likes. I've read his reviews before. His politics don't coincide with my politics. That stuff doesn't bother me. I actually like Bayonetta's sexuality, so if anything, that's going to add to it for me. So it's like, okay, yeah, it's a Bayonetta game. It's what I was expecting. Cool, time to purchase it, right?
Yeah.
And but just because like he and I have that difference of opinion doesn't mean that like, oh, he's garbage, I'm not going to read him. Like he's just this, like politically driven loser who's like paid off by so and so. It's like, no, it's actually a really well written review and tells me what I need to know. It's just got some extra stuff in it that I can ignore.
Yeah,
it's fine.
I ran into that same issue when I was reviewing what was it, Middle Earth Shadow of War.
Oh yeah.
Because when that dropped, I remember because I was all geeked about it because I loved the first one, had a great time with it. I went to their little they had like a after party for New York Comic Con at like a bar or whatever, and we played the game before it got released and everything. So I was geeked up about it. I was ready to review it, and then all of a sudden I saw, and this started like the whole groupthink thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I saw one review, and it wasn't even really that much of a review. It was more like an opinion on the game and the game mechanics on Medium, and a game reviewer likened the game mechanic of basically enslaving the orcs into your army or whatever.
Oh, right.
That's the terminology that they use. You're basically enslaved.
I think I remember hearing about this article.
Yeah, and it threw the community in a tizzy. There was like half of them was like, it's just a game, and another group of them was like, look, I can't condone this. He was like, I love the game, but because of this, I'm not even going to try to play it, and da da da. So I was like stuck. I was like, oh, I can kind of see where this article is coming from, but I love the game, so I was like, I'm gonna play it, and I went ahead and I played it. And at the beginning of my review, I made it a point to put that in there to be like, what? This reviewer actually does have a point about the way that this game is kind of structured. It's kind of creepy or whatever. So I'm going to put this here. You can reference the article. You can read it, make a decision for yourself. But for the rest of the article, I'm gonna go on and I'm gonna talk about the game because I actually like it. So I literally put that in like the first couple of paragraphs of my review because I was like, that's something you just can't overlook, because depending on who's gonna be looking at the game, reviewing, not even looking at the game, but looking for the game to see what it's about or whatever, that knows nothing about the mechanics or the gameplay or whatever. Like if it was a parent or something like that, they should be kind of aware of what's actually going to be happening in the game. So I was like, what? I got to at least put this in there so they can, make a decision for themselves, that kind of thing. So, yeah, it can get like that with groupthink. It gets rough.
I was actually thinking that you were going to talk about the loot box part of it because I felt that was like the groupthink where it was like, even before the game came out, people were like, oh, this game is going to suck. Like, boycott this game. Like, they ruined the game. Like, I played it and I'm like, these loot boxes don't add, and like if anything, the way that they implemented them was like to make them as unappealing as possible, because it's like, okay, I got my free loot boxes, I opened them, I got these orcs that I don't care about, and then immediately caught two others that were way better. It's like, all right, I don't need this at all.
Right. The loot box system they had really didn't even make any sense until after you beat the game.
Yeah.
You know,
and even then, like, because everything is tied to your character level. It's like, the only way to raise your level is to grind, and there's not any way that you can pay out of grinding. It's just part of that game, and that's the part that is a bummer.
Yeah. And then they eventually took it out, so I was like, whatever.
Speaking to more about groupthink and what I was saying earlier about it kind of being the easy way out, sort of the way that we're talking about opinions and all that, sometimes the groupthink can not even go that far. We were mentioning a little bit before we started the podcast about reviews and stuff, and sometimes people will just scroll down and look at the score.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the groupthink and the opinion of something is based solely on that score. Not even like what the reviewer actually said. It's literally just a groupthink of a number.
Absolutely.
And something we were making fun of before the show was the IGN scale, where pretty much anything below a 7 is bad. I do have my problems with that and everything, but only with the scale, because I feel that if you look at a lot of the IGN's reviews, a lot of the reviews themselves, the actual written words, are actually pretty good.
Yeah.
If you're looking for something like, typically IGN doesn't go like really, really in depth, but if you're looking for something just kind of relatively short and still gives you a good idea of what the game is, they're usually pretty good. It's when you get to the score that when it becomes the problem. And again, with this concept of groupthink, it even takes out that, and that's to the point that's why IGN has the reputation that it has. It's almost entirely based on its review scale, not even so much the integrity of its reviewers or what the reviewers say or how good their work is.
I'm sorry, but after their Pokemon Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire review, I just kind of thought, okay, I will never read an IGN review and not think 7.9 out of 10 too much water.
That came up again recently for Sonic Mania Plus, because they were saying that had too much water.
It's like, oh no, it started again.
Yeah. And I think they gave it like around the same score too. It was like 7.8 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I had mentioned this before the show too, is that I think a lot of it, you need to use your whole scale. And when is the last time that you saw an IGN review that was like a 3.5 or a 2? There are some terrible games that come out, and I don't see these low scores that I would expect. Like it's like Esteban says, like it's 7 or trash. Like you need to use that whole scale. Like there are plenty of ones that have come out lately, especially on PC, especially on Steam, and like there's use that
so
scale. Have fun.
Steam, there's so many games on Steam that should be a 0 because they're not even working.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and also like it's so cathartic to be able to really just go to town on a truly terrible game. And that's the other thing too, is that I think a lot of people who are out, like who don't review games, who just like consume them, they don't really know what a terrible game is. So you'll see them like be like, oh yeah, like Star Wars Battlefront 2, it's like a 0 out of 10, and it's like have you played a 0 out of 10?
No,
trust me, Battlefront 2 is not that.
It's far from that.
I mean, I still wouldn't call that a good game, but it's not a 0.
Yeah, but it's a middling shooter that gets by on Star Wars nostalgia. But
it's not a horrible game. It's
you
just
can have fun with it.
You can have fun with it. It's just for how long? That's basically the question.
I mean, I've played Sonic 06. I mean, that's at least close to a 0.
Burger Time World Tour, my friend.
Burger Time.
Bomberman Act 0.
Yeah. The War of the Worlds for Xbox Live Arcade, which was...
I remember that game, but I never played it.
Yeah, I was actually, I think, one of the only people on the leaderboards to actually finish it by the time I reviewed
Oh man, I feel sorry for you, man. Sorry.
Damn. Well, I mean, that's pretty good. Do you think maybe it's time we go to a little bit of a break?
Maybe.
Yeah.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, definitely keep it right here. We will be right back after the break. Deuces, people. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We are here once again with our Groupthink, trying to give our opinions to you for you to agree with at all times. Welcome back.
I think it's firmly established that the only opinion that really matters is BJ's.
Yeah.
And by BJ's, I mean
You got it right.
And I guess because of that, I'm going to have to agree with how that sentence came out.
Oh man, when we left our heroes not so long ago,
I'm Donatello.
But daggone it, man.
I want to be Mikey then.
Okay.
Well, see, I can't even remember all the colors of the.
Donatello's purple, so haha.
Yeah. So I got Donatello. You got Leonardo.
No, I'm Donatello.
No, you got Leo. You got Leo's colors. He's blue.
It's only because I was nice and
Julius
I gave you
got
purple.
Raphael. And Shawn, I don't know what you got. You just have the green ooze color right now.
I completely
so I don't even know if
this
you're
podcast. I'm sorry.
So what you're saying is I was the last person to put a quarter into the Ninja Turtles arcade cabinet, so I have Raph.
Yes.
If it's any consolation, it's Turtles in Time.
He has the consolation prize. Yes. So yeah, where were we? I can't even remember. I've got old man brain right now.
Groupthink.
Okay.
Yeah, and
all
we're
right.
criticizing IGN's review skill.
Oh yeah, we were talking about the review skills and how everybody likes to scroll all the way down the review just to look at the score and go, "Oh, they gave it a 6. Bump this game. It sucks. I'm not buying it."
Yeah, or if they gave it a 9, I must love it now. And they
I must have it. It's the greatest game ever. Yeah. I will have to say, at some point in time, I have definitely done that. There's been certain games that I was unsure about, and I just said, you know what? IGN, oh, they gave it a 9. You know what? I will rent it just to see. You know what I mean?
And if anything, I think one thing that could be gleaned from the whole, like, if it's 7 and above, it's good. If it's 7 or it's below 7, it's trash. It's simply that games as a whole are of a higher quality. You just across the board these days.
Oh hell yeah!
And so why gamble on a 6 when there's so many 9s out there, right? Mm-hmm. Now you can play a 6 and have a grand old time. Some of my favorite games in my collection are 6s and below, right? But it's hard.
I like Sonic Adventure DX.
Yeah, I like Golden Axe Beast Rider. I like Eat Lead, The Return of Matt Hazard. I think those are like some really fun, like middle, like B tier games, right? Yeah. But
Dynasty Warriors,
and
all the above.
Yeah, but the problem is how can you like really give someone like the big sell on that when it's like, yeah, but like, Horizon Zero Dawn came out, Nier came out, Persona 5 came out, right? Like all of these like huge games that are like taking the world by storm, and it's hard for those smaller games to to be trifled with.
Yeah, especially when games are $60 a pop usually.
Yeah,
that's a big investment overall.
Don't remind me.
Mm-hmm.
But
Humble Bundle is your friend.
But that's another bit of groupthink that I find interesting is that the concept of how expensive games are now. When like I worked in retail in games for a long time, and I think we're all of an age too where we can remember like when games were actually really expensive, because games have kind of held firm at like the $60 price point for a decade now. Yeah. But, like I remember when my cousin bought Street Fighter 2 Turbo for the Super Nintendo for $80, right? Phantasy Star 4 was a $100 cartridge. When I first started working in video games, we were selling GoldenEye for the N64 for $80.
Yeah.
Right? Like, things are pretty good now, especially like you don't even have to like pay for a video game. You can just get an Xbox or a PS4 and like pay the $50 a year and have a really nice
tons of games
over the year, and that'll do you just fine. I would have killed for that when I was a kid.
To clarify, I do still think that video games are expensive at $60, but I will agree with you that they used to be crazy expensive back then.
Yeah, especially when you consider like when you're adjusting for inflation and stuff like that.
Yeah,
like
adjusting for inflation.
$80 in 1994 was a lot more than a $60 game now.
When a game had the ability to save, that bumped up the price. They didn't take that hit. They passed that cost down to the consumer.
Yeah.
So
and what a lot of people don't remember is that even PS1 games were variable in price at the beginning. There were $60 and $70 PlayStation 1 games the big box days.
I bought my mother bought me Tekken 1 for $70.
Yep.
Oh my god, I should not have done that. And I like Tekken 1, by the way, even though it's kind of old and antiquated now. I still enjoy it, but it's not $70.
No,
it was back then.
Back then, it shouldn't have been.
Of course, now
my Tekken 1 was a quarter. That was the only way I was messing with it.
Yeah, so was my Super Street Fighter 2.
Yeah, exactly. That was about as much as I was putting into that one.
Of course, now we're getting into the collector's market where that Tekken is probably $70 again.
Probably.
If you're going for the long box, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Easy.
Mm-hmm. But like back in the day, although it's kind of weird because during the PlayStation 1 era, that was supposed to be when prices went down because of using the disc. It was supposed to be $50. But going back to the groupthink thought. I'm stumbling over my words. I think we should talk about other aspects that this tends to what's the word I'm looking for? Affect other parts of the video game industry because we've been talking a lot about reviews and opinions about the games that we play, but what about like the way that's perceived beyond history? Because sometimes that can change, and like all of a sudden the way that we looked at the game is completely different. Like I had mentioned before Twilight Princess, and I said when it first came out, everyone's like, oh, this is still pretty good, and now everyone shits on it. Yeah. Another good example of that was Wind Waker. There's a lot of revisionist history with that game. When it first came out, everyone was... I love
revisionist history with gamers. It's one of my favorite things.
everyone was mad about the cell shading, and then they released the HD version of it, and it was like, oh, this game is wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I think part of that was the sailing in it. I think that kind of... I mean, the cell shading, everything else like that, yeah. When it first came out, it was because there was an original Zelda demo that looked more like Twilight Princess.
Yeah.
And people were like, yes, this is going to be the next Zelda. I'm so hyped for this. What the fuck's that cell shading doing in my Zelda game?
Yeah.
And then, that kind of went until that game was released and people kept on crapping on it until now that people look back and be like, if you actually play this game, it's actually not that bad.
Yeah. And then it ended up, over time becoming one of the most beloved games. And I think one of the reasons is that graphically it holds up better than most things of that generation, right? Yep. Like it's still like if you play that on a GameCube on a regular TV right now, it still looks really nice. You can't really say that about a lot of the other stuff that came out at the same time.
Yeah, that's true.
That was one of those weird time periods in history where we put a whole lot into the graphical quality of certain games. So a lot of times people would make a rush decision about a game strictly based off its graphical quality. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? They were like, oh, if it looked cartoony or something like that and it didn't have enough smooth lines or whatever, then they were like, oh my gosh, this is horrible, this game is crap, look at the graphics. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I just think that was an interesting time period,
And now you look back at that's the sixth generation, your PS2, Xbox, GameCube, and now you look back at a lot of the games released there, and it's like, wow, where did all the art design go?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's just all bland.
We've only just now in the last few years come to a point where I think people have come to appreciate that games can have different art styles, and like pixel art is a style choice now, right? Mm-hmm. Cell shaded is a style choice, and you can have you don't necessarily have to go for the most realistic looking game. Now, granted, those are still the ones that wow people most, but there's things that run the gamut, and I think people have come to appreciate that games look different. That not everything has to look like Gears of War in order to be.
Please don't always look like Gears of War.
Right. But Esteban, to go back to what you were talking about revisionist history, people who know me may know I'm a little bit of a Final Fantasy fan.
Really?
And
you like
I've
that
never
movie?
known that about you. You're a freaking liar.
One of my favorite things is to go back because Final Fantasy fans are a fickle bunch, and
yes, they are.
I work so the prevailing groupthink now amongst Final Fantasy fans is that the last really good Final Fantasy games was 9 and 10. Right, and there hasn't really been a good Final Fantasy game since then. That's when things started to go off the rails. But
yeah, I've heard that opinion. Yeah,
but I was in the retail trenches when those games came out. People hated Final Fantasy 9 because the people who cut their teeth on 7 and 8 were like, "What's this shit? What are these characters with the big heads? What's this girl with the rat tail?
I want my super awesome graphic whooshy stuff."
Yeah, and then Final Fantasy X, people hated Titus, right? They hated his voice acting, and they they hated the characters and they didn't like the linear nature of the game.
Yeah.
And then fast forward 10 years, and when you get to like the HD collection, it's like, oh, finally they're releasing one of the best Final Fantasies ever in HD. It's like, wait, that's not what you were saying back in 2000.
Real quick, maybe you'll know this. Am I right in assuming that everyone still hates X2?
A lot of people do. It's one of my favorites.
Okay.
Honestly,
adore that game.
I gave up on Final Fantasy after 8.
Right?
That was about as much as I could deal with it. Just mainly because honestly, some of the storylines of Final Fantasy are really, really hard for me. You know what I mean? It's like I cut my teeth on one because that was like on what, Game Boy? Was that on Game Boy or was that on
it's been on
NES.
everything at this point.
It was on NES,
originally
right?
NES, yeah.
Yeah, so I cut my teeth on the very first one and I enjoyed it enough to play it, but it didn't really pull me in because I had other stuff on my PC that were, role-playing games that I felt had more depth, so I didn't get into.
Yeah.
But once I hit what was that? 3 was on the SNES, right?
Mm-hmm. I'll be right back because I got a point to make, but please continue talking, BJ.
This means I'm going to be right because Esteban in here. Perfect timing. Dang it, he's back. But no, when 3 came out, that was when I finally kind of jumped into it and I was paying a bit more attention to like the storyline, and even then the storyline was kind of hard to follow, and it was just like, oh, you're a what? You're a dog? But you talk, what is going on? There's a little white panda. Look at what the hell, and I would go through it and I was just like, just like hitting stuff with numbers popping on the screen. You know what I mean? And that was kind of the way I went. And then of course 7 dropped. I loved 7's story. I followed it. I loved it. In 8, I kind of liked it. It kind of threw me for a loop. But then after that, I just kind of went, okay, whoa, what the hell are we singing? Who's singing? Why are we singing? This is this this is K-pop? What is going on here? There's balls flying all over the place. I don't know what the click.
It got too anime for you at some point.
Yes,
like, nope.
It got too anime for me. I was like, I can't do it, man. I can't. I was like, I can't. To this day, I haven't touched another Final Fantasy game. And I blame the movie. That's what I blame.
Oh yeah, that didn't help. We're talking about Final Fantasy. We were talking about revisionist history. Great example of this. What happened with this?
Oh, you didn't open the box. You gotta. There's a disc in there. You put the disc in.
Are you referring to
the disc could already be in there? He hasn't opened it.
Oh, okay.
I'm referring
my bad.
I guess I'm referring to the MMO because that's what's in here. But no. I remember when Final Fantasy 12 first came out, and everyone was losing their freaking minds over it. Everyone thought it was so good. I remember it selling out. It got great scores. Everyone saying that's such a great game after 10 being too simplistic, and now everyone hates this game.
Really? Because I've found the reverse to be true. I remembered people not liking it when it came out because it felt too much like the Final Fantasy 11 MMO, except single player. Mm-hmm. Like with the whole like programming your characters and stuff. But then when that HD collection came out, people were like, "Oh, yes, like the last like it keeps moving forward, right? The last good Final Fantasy game, right? So like." Another 5 years from now, when they re-release Final Fantasy 13, they'll be like, "Oh yes, the last good Final Fantasy game."
Oh, and
like,
they will be wrong, but they'll be wrong. But okay.
No, they will be.
Yeah. I still haven't beaten that game, and I just can't. It's.
I am one of the biggest Final Fantasy apologists, and I don't fault you for it.
And I want to because I have 13.2 as well, and it's just I can't get through the first one though.
It's staring at you right now.
And then I didn't even bother with Lightning Returns. So I'm like, I can't even get through the first 2. So
Esteban, I couldn't finish Lightning Returns.
I've heard that too. Are you familiar with a YouTuber named Jesse Cox?
No.
Okay. Well, he is. He's a big Final Fantasy nerd, just like you, and he's been kind of trying to defend Final Fantasy 13-2, and he was doing a Let's Play of Lightning Returns. That Let's Play lasted 2 episodes. And he literally stopped the footage, and then it just went black screen. It's like, okay, I already know what's going to happen. I looked up the ending. It's exactly what I thought was going to happen. This is bullshit. I am not doing this.
Isn't Final Fantasy 13-2 like very close to the original 13, but Lightning Returns is vastly different?
Yeah, the 13 trilogy is interesting in the fact that the party keeps shrinking. You only have 2 human characters in 13-2, and then only 1 in Lightning Returns. But also the story gets like even more bonkers as it progresses. But with fewer characters,
I knew it.
I don't know. It's weird. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, yeah. I don't know. I remember for 12. I remember there being such big scores. So. What were you hearing?
It definitely reviewed well, but I mean, as far as like I remember player perception at the time being pretty lukewarm to negative on it. Again, just because of that kind of pseudo MMO feel to it,
right?
Because like if you look at after they shut down Final Fantasy 14 vanilla and reworked it, it is very much the battle system from Final Fantasy 12. In an online setting, like straight up to the fonts and the numbering system and the targeting lines, like all that stuff is ripped right out of 12 because 12 was basically an offline MMO and it worked really well. So, it's interesting to me.
Is it possible that maybe, at least I think, and the things that I've seen about Final Fantasy 12 being a bad game is because people are remembering that it played like Final Fantasy 14 vanilla?
I don't know. But you know what's an interesting point, Esteban, is that I think when Final Fantasy 12 came out, that's when like the internet was definitely starting to rise. So you may have just been in a different corner of the internet than I was, and I was still with a toe in the retail end, and I was definitely still very much reading magazines. I didn't really go whole hog into like looking at video game stuff on the internet for a few years after that point. So I'm talking. So my impression of this is people like customers that I was talking to, but then also reading like letters pages, to magazines and stuff like that, where people are like, oh, blah blah blah. Like I really didn't like this about it.
Final Fantasy 12 was 2006, so I still definitely had my subscription to Game Informer.
Yeah.
I was definitely on GameFAQs a lot. I don't know. Maybe some sort of weird combination.
I could definitely see like the forum part of that, being in a different area maybe. It's just interesting though. But again, like because I think BJ had kind of alluded to that at the beginning, that like the just like the internet and kind of it has fracted everybody into their own little segments and stuff. And again, like I said, an echo chamber, and it's also why I hate like the whole like the community part of like every game has a community now, right? And like they've got their all like I've been playing fighting games since fighting games were created. I cannot engage with the fighting game community at all. They have evolved to a level where I cannot follow. It's like, what the hell are you even saying? What's a shimmy? What are you talking about? Like use English, use words.
One of my favorite things to do is to go into a community like just like a game that has a very dedicated community, like Destiny 2. I pull that example out of thin air, but just like I played Destiny 2 for the first couple of months. It was like, okay, this is great. I'll probably put it down. A year later, just go back into it. The community's completely changed. We've got completely different terminology. You've got a completely different type of ecosystem there, and you're just popping back in and be like, what's this?
What just happened?
You like that picture of Johnny Depp from Pirates of the Caribbean?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Apparently, my super rare rocket launcher is a plunger now. I don't know what happened.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's definitely Destiny. Goodness.
Yeah. I don't know. Is there any way where because I hesitate to say that groupthink is inherently negative. Is there any way where groupthink could be a positive?
I think whenever people talk about underrated games and kind of bring them out, because I mean, at first, yeah, you'll have groupthink that is negative. You'll have games that are kind of pushed into the wayside to focus on a much bigger and better title. But then as years go on, you start to think of, oh, hey, this is actually a good game. Let's kind of bring it up. Let's give it some appreciation. And sometimes, most of the time it is negative, I will say, but you can also manipulate it to kind of be like, hey guys, look, here's this good game. It has these features that are also in these good games that you like. And then they can kind of boost it and then promote it from there.
I think it can possibly be more, it can be a better thing, like Shawn was saying, but also just like when you're letting people have a difference of opinion and you're not automatically discounting that, but it's also not this like all or nothing type thing, right? Like there can be nuance in there. And I think that's important is that, you know, you can love a game and still say there's these things in here that are bad, right? Like there's some stuff in here that kind of sucks, but it's still a really great game, right? Like, but somehow it has to be all or nothing, and I just don't think that helps anybody, right? Like because even with underrated games, right? It's like people will tend to like have to build those up to such a degree just to get somebody to even look at it, to where all of a sudden it's like, well, now this underrated game is like overrated because like people are like, oh, actually, yeah, this is a really great game, and now I'm going to preach about it too and make it even more hyperbolic than it was before, just to get more eyes on it, and then it just, you know.
Yeah, it swings the pendulum. Yeah. I kind of see that in a similar, like the whole underrated title, I guess, kind of similar with like retro gaming, because I think a lot of people, they'll get caught up with the new and shiny so much. And a lot of times you'll see certain game mechanics and stuff like that, especially for a lot of us older gamers, that will recognize from older games and go, oh yeah, that reminds me of an old game that I used to like, da 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 da. And you know, then all of a sudden, kind of like we were just doing with the Final Fantasy topic, we'll start talking about like, oh, you know, these games way back in, you know, like the early 2000s and 99s, oh, this game was great, and da 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 da. And you know, the whole groupthink around retro gaming for a lot of older gamers, just saying, oh, this was like a classic game, and just labeling stuff classic games and stuff like that sometimes is and has been, in my opinion, like a good thing in terms of like groupthink, just to kind of show a lot of people that either haven't been gamers for a long time or are new to gaming or only play one genre of gaming and are curious about, you know, another genre or something like that, to be like, oh, you know what, before you jump on the new hotness Witcher 3 or whatever, maybe go back and play such and such and such RPG, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And
you know, because I 100% bet there's plenty of people that are like, oh, Witcher 3 is greatest RPG ever, and da 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 da, and blah blah blah, and you know, they may not have even ever heard of Mass Effect or, you know, Jade Empire or, you know, Bard's Tale or anything, you know, anything wizardry or something even that far back, where you still had really great storylines, but not all of the actiony, arcadey action, but was still really, really dedicated to its storyline, regardless of what characters you had or specific to a particular character that you had, you know?
Yeah. I mean, the way I was introduced to RPGs was my friend showed me Final Fantasy VII. I watched him play, and then one of the first RPGs he gave me, because he knew I love fighting games, was he said, try this out, and he handed me a game called Legend of Legaia.
Nice.
And I was like, oh,
speaking of nice, like, underrated games that kind of fly under the radar.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, you can do, like, combination of moves, and then if you do them right, you get, like, a special attack. Like, oh, it's like a Hadouken. Like, oh, and that's how I was able to figure it out.
You're like, oh, you just put Street Fighter in there. Perfect. I want to play it now.
I actually want to point out something that's in the chat. Mike was saying that groupthink helps for fandom, supporting creators, and allows for auteur theory. I think the way that we can show that groupthink can be a positive is by whether or not the groupthink has a high or low integrity. So why does everybody think this way? If there's the more reasons why they think the way, the better I think the integrity of that groupthink is, and the more like not valid, but valuable. Yes, it becomes. And I think really what the problem is here is like everything we've been talking about is like, oh, everyone sees just the score, and then that's what everybody thinks just by the score. Oh, everyone just read the review and just thinks that this one opinion is this way, whether it be, you know, we believe the review or we think it's bullcrap because it comes from IGN or something. And these are very shallow reasons. These are very, very surface level reasons. It has this type of groupthink has low integrity. You know?
Yeah.
But if it has high integrity, if they're like, well, we think this way because I love the way it does this, I love the way it does that. Everyone loves, you know, not this is the best example, but I'm going by what I know. Everyone loves Sonic Mania. Why? Because the level design is good, because it has multiple characters that do different things, because it pays homage to the previous games, and it has...
Because the music is so good.
The music is sick as shit. And all these like legitimate reasons, as opposed to, well, I saw a review that gave it a 9, and that's why I think it's good.
I also kind of want to go into back what BJ was talking about with Shadow of War and the loot box, basically. Because whenever they first got introduced, like the first game that really made it a big thing was Overwatch. And, you know, we've have an entire podcast about that, talking about that.
Yeah.
And then when they started pushing it, it started getting into the ecosystem of, okay, this isn't right. This has got to stop. We've got to make it stop. And that kind of push it into a cause to get it to stop. That's why you don't have loot boxes in Shadow of War anymore. That's part of the reason why loot boxes are not in Battlefront 2. Is because we've basically had a call to arms within that gaming groupthink and said, hey, if we band together, we can do some real good here. And I think
2K, you should listen, daggone it. Mother was
I mean,
yeah, unfortunately sports games have to
this can be good and this can be bad. Yeah, this can be good and this can be bad, because of course, you know, you can also do the same thing with, oh, hey, we don't like this developer, let's gang up on them. But
yeah, I was gonna say,
focus on the positive.
Yeah. Because one of the things I saw that really bothered me about Shadow of War before it came out was so many people saying, "Oh, I'm not buying this game because it has loot boxes." Like, full stop. And I'm like, wait for the reviews. Like, let's see if this is even an issue. Like, you know, the core thing is like, does the game suffer because these are in here? And then when the game came out, it turned out actually no, it doesn't. But the problem is that if you're just automatically saying like, I'm not buying this game, then hey, there's no more of that game, right? Because it tanked. What really the best way to do is say, I'm going to still support this game because I like it, but I'm not going to engage with any of that loot box crap whatsoever. And I'm going to be very vocal about it at the same time, right? Make them hurt there so that they can continue to make more games. Because you gotta believe that like the developers weren't the ones that wanted to put that shit in there, right? Like that was all on the publisher end, which is why I really do feel that like the devs were like, we're just going to make these as shitty as we can possibly make them, so you don't really have to engage with it. Like, it's a mandate that it's in here, but you can ignore it.
And in our loot box episode, I think towards the end, what we ended up kind of like deciding was that loot boxes weren't inherently bad. It's just that a lot of them involve the game not really telling you what your chances are.
Yes,
with everything, and they're just not transparent with what it is that you're getting. So that if you knew, like, oh well, if you want to get this one item, it's gonna be like a 2% chance. So then you can be like, well, I don't know if I want to take that chance, or something like that. It's just they're not being honest with you. They're not being transparent. So, I mean, in that way, you know, in groupthink, if you just see all loot boxes and be like, okay, that's bad, then that's not really good. But if you look at the loot boxes and maybe say something with Star Wars Battlefront, and it was like, well, this affects how you progress through the game. You can literally buy your way to win. This type of loot box is not okay.
Right.
And then, I mean, for better or for worse, I still personally think that game has problems beyond that. But once those loot boxes were taken out, then it sold fine.
Yeah.
You know?
It ended up selling pretty well before that too. I mean, it
did. It had Star Wars on the box, so it sold pretty well. It just didn't meet their projections for what they aimed and what their goals for it to sell. That's based.
It probably would have sold better if they had not done that.
Yeah,
let's put it that way.
And to be fair, I mean, I still have Overwatch and I still play it, even with its loot boxes. I'm one of those that subscribe to the cosmetics theory to everything. Like, as long as it doesn't interfere with gameplay, I'm okay with it if I can choose not to do that. I understand why others don't like that, but that comes back to that one key word: explain.
Yeah.
Explain.
And I think in Overwatch's case, the one change that I would like to see is you should be able to get a loot box for your favorite characters. Right, like you should say, like, these are like my 4 favorite characters. I'm gonna have a better chance of getting stuff for these 4 characters. And yeah, sure, you're probably still gonna get some other stuff, but it kind of sucks when it's like you open like the last 3 loot boxes that you opened was for stuff of characters that you have
never used before. Yeah, that does get you. Yeah.
Yep.
You want stuff for Reaper, and you get a whole bunch of Reinhardt or something.
Yeah. It's like I don't want to play a tank. Or maybe even be able to do it like that. Like, just like say, I only play attack, so I only want attack character loot.
Yeah, something like that.
Right.
Yeah. Just give options. That's really it, right?
Yeah.
Players love choice.
Yes, we do.
Also, I think we have time for one more break.
Oh, do you want to go for another break?
I think it's a good time to do so. BJ, up to you. The host
sure. We can make it happen, ladies and gentlemen, because I know you want to see this just a little bit more. So, if you do, come right on back right after the break, y'all. We'll be right back, y'all. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We have yet another 3 hours of show for you today. Oh, no?
No, that's my show. That's what we do on my show.
Oh, okay. Yes, we are here. We are back talking about more groupthink, and we need to know what your group thinks of what we're talking about. So yeah, we definitely want to hear from you guys. In any way, shape, form, or fashion. As you can see, we have all of our little stuff, social medias and sites and so forth. It's always really, really great to hear from people. We can get new topics from you guys, questions, answers, comments about Esteban's hair, or my glasses, or who knows, whatever it is. We definitely want to hear from you guys, but.
It's hard.
Before we even go any further, we definitely want to give a huge thank you to Julian for being on the show tonight. Great topic, very, very great discussion. We definitely appreciate it, and we're very glad that you have pants on. I know that's rare for you.
It is
very rare. But
man, I live in Austin, Texas. Like usually, like the pants come off as soon as you come through the door in the summer.
Yeah. Heat wave for sure. Don't want it sweaty. Can't do the sweaty. No.
No, but thank you. I've really enjoyed this. This has been a lot of fun. Because my show was on hiatus for a while, and we've just recently come back. We've only recorded one episode since the hiatus, and as I said at the beginning of that show, I've really missed talking about video games with people because I don't have anybody in my day-to-day life that I get to talk to about anymore. And I worked, in a video game store for 8 years where that's all we did all day, every day. And so, the podcast was definitely an outlet for that. And, it was gone for 2 months, and I was like,
come on, baby. Come on. Talk to me.
Anybody out there on Twitter I need to talk about, go to
Hey, well, man, don't be a stranger. If you got some extra time, maybe you can come back.
Definitely. I would love to come back.
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, let's try to see if we can, wrap up and give like a quick summary of what our group think topic here. Were there any last or final thoughts you guys had on our topic?
I think just personally, try to turn this group thing, if you see like a big prevalent opinion, kind of break it down. Try to see why people have this idea. If it is just this giant thing of, well, that's the way it's always been, kind of break through the clouds and say, well, why do we have this? Talk about it, bring a discussion, because that's what gamers like to do. That's what a gaming community should be doing. We should be sitting down and discussing all this type of stuff instead of saying there is one opinion and this is law.
It's the word of the day, right, Shawn? Explain.
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 Yeah, I think let's just piggybacking off of what Shawn said, just take the time to form your own opinions, question things, but don't be a dick about it, right? And I think that applies to just anything on the internet, right? Let's have these discussions, just don't be a dick about it, right? If somebody says, oh, I love this game, you don't have to jump in and say, oh, I hate this game, and here's 18 reasons why. You can say oh, really? I really didn't like this about it, but tell me what you liked about it. Let's tell me what you see in it that I don't. I've done that a lot recently because there have been a few games where I'm great example was Nier last year. I hated Nier. And I was constantly asking people on Twitter, I was explain it to me.
Why?
I don't see anything in here of value. Please tell me. I'm not trying to shit on your game. I just want to know.
Did they actually sway your opinion to any degree?
No, but I understand more, and I think it just boils down to the fact that they got a lot more emotionally attached to characters that I could not wait to die. Like the whole game, I'm I hate all of you.
Go away. What about you, Esteban?
I mean, maybe I should do that for the Uncharted series because I hate that series a lot. Yeah, I mean, I think that groupthink is a problem with. I mean, it's not really just for video games, but we'll focus on video games, and because I don't know, I think like especially a lot of gamers, especially some of the ones of us that are older who grew up when video games were not the cool thing and not something that you talked openly about because you were then a nerd and that got you beat up. Now that they have a platform and everything, they kind of don't know how to do with it, and so they just kind of stick with what they want, what they like, and then that's how you get this groupthink sort of thing. And that's why I think it'd be very toxic. However, I also know that when you come together and you bond over something that you like and you can have a thoughtful conversation about something that you like, that is never not a positive. So I think groupthink is something that just is when you have a lot of people agreeing and disagreeing on something, and just knowing how to do it, having a high level of integrity about it, like I was saying before, then the groupthink can be a positive thing, and we need to move more towards that. I don't think it's inherently bad. I think it's mostly bad right now, unfortunately, but I think it can be. I think it could be better. Just being positive about it, I guess.
It's kind of the internet as a whole right now. Like, it's mostly bad, but it could be so much better.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the big things with groupthink and with just having opinions and being critical of things in general, for me, has boiled down to just recognizing that regardless of what the product is, it's a finished product that either a person or a great deal of people put a lot of time, energy, and passion into. I've always found that, like, especially when I started and decided to kind of tone down, if not stop doing music reviews, that because art is so subjective and it's typically tied to that person's experience and what they've been through in their life, that a lot of times my opinion on something just doesn't always apply to, I don't even want to say a lot of people, but just some people. And just being aware that because of other people's experiences, that they're going to see it differently. Just like Julian was saying, they're going to see something else in it. They're going to be tied to a certain character's experience or what that character is going through. They're going to have their own triggers, whether it's for just the music or just the character, or maybe even just the graphics or something like that, that just pulls them in. And then all of a sudden, that's their favorite game in the moment. That just having a bit more empathy for that whole creative process and just for the art in general. Because, you know, just like we've been talking about, there are so many games out there, and a great deal of those games are good. You know, there's a lot of good games out there, and even the ones that are so-called bad, that have their issues or whatever, there's still stuff in there that can be fun, and that are fun for some people. You know, there's been plenty of mobile games that at first I was like, this is trash, and then when I had nothing else to do and I was bored out of my mind, that trash game became my savior for however long I was playing it. I deleted it afterwards, but I still played it. It was trash, but I played it for that given hour or something that I was bored. So, you know, that kind of changed my perception. I was like, it's not that much trash, you know, especially if I spent an hour playing it. But, you know, it's one of those things where going from being a consumer to attempting or even becoming a creator sometimes can change your perception of, you know, just the whole process and what a finished product is, and, you know, even how good or how bad a finished product is. So just remember that when you guys decide to jump on the bandwagon for something in terms of saying that it's good or saying that it's bad, you got to remember art is very subjective, and that there's a lot of people that can find value and find something good in something that a lot of other people think was just horrible or whatever. So always keep that in mind, and that goes with just about every kind of art form.
If you subject to the idea that video games are art, which I do,
which I 100% think it is.
Yeah. So yeah.
But ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have today. I would once again thank you once again, Julian, for jumping on the show with this great topic, great discussion. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Dude,
definitely let the people know where they can find you, where they can find your podcast and what it's about.
Yes, well, I have been the host of the Nerds Without Pants podcast. Just now proudly celebrating 6 years of pantsless podcasting as of July 13th.
Congrats.
Thank you. It's been an interesting ride, from having like 0 listeners to having, well, I take it back, having like 1 listener to having, now hundreds of listeners, maybe more than that. Apple doesn't tell you the numbers, right? So I don't know.
Yeah.
I only have like the traffic to the website to give me any type of clue. But, we kind of revitalized ourselves about 2 years ago. And then just recently, like I said, went on hiatus. We lost a co-host, and now we're kind of in the process of like going back into beta before we unleash Nerds Without Pants version 3.0.
Right.
But we try to keep the show timeless. We don't really focus on news or like current reviews and stuff like that. It's more about coming up with fun topics that should be as fun to listen to now as they would be like 3 years from now. And the show is mostly interactive. Right now in beta form, not as much, but we thrive on the input and the comments of our listeners via Twitter or through the website pixelbit.com. But yeah, definitely check us out. Like I said, you can find us on pixelbit.com. That's pixlbit.com. And you can also find the show pretty much anywhere that you get your podcasts from. We're mainly on iTunes, but your other third-party apps are going to have it as well. We're just not on like stuff like SoundCloud or like Libsyn yet. But you can also find the show on Twitter at NWPcast, and you can find me there. I guess, I don't know, at Julian_Titus.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's below you.
Yeah, it's over there, man.
It's below you. It's in the bottom right corner. Your mirror.
Your other left.
Oh.
Your other. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
At Julian_Titus.
Yes.
Yep.
How about you, Esteban?
Hi. You know me from here. I guess. I don't have like the outside thing to do, because this is, well, actually, yes, I do. What the hell am I talking about?
Liar. Oh, sorry.
I do my own thing. I have my blog that needs more love, but I do have stuff up there that you can go and read. That's heycolorwin.wordpress.com. I have my YouTube channel, youtube.com/user/colorwin. There's a whole bunch of Let's Plays that you go watch. Currently have a Let's Play of Alice Madness Returns going up there every Monday and Thursday. Let's see, I stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/heycolorwin. And I'm currently playing through 2 different games. Mondays is Kingdom Hearts, which I'm almost done with. Thursday is Yooka-Laylee, which I thought I was done with. I am not. There's a 100-page wall that's been put up in front of me now for no indiscernible reason. Pages are the collectibles, in case you don't know.
Nice.
Let me see, what else? Other than that, I think... yeah, I believe that's all the content that I have coming up. You can check me out on Twitter at heycolorwin. Let's see if I can do this right. Here we go. Here.
Beautiful. So professional.
It's right there. I don't know. Julian's here and he's talking about Pixel Bits. Some of my old stuff is there.
Yeah, you can look up Esteban and you'll find some of his reviews and previews and stuff.
Yeah, I did a few editorials as well.
Mm-hmm.
There was one I'm still really proud of that's on there, where I was talking about precision and platforming.
That was a good one. I remember that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an old school one. That was 7 years ago. Jesus Christ.
Getting old there, buddy.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's me.
Heartbreak Kid. What's going on, man?
All right. I don't have too much going on right now. I'm starting to get right back into it. Meant to get a lot of stuff done last week, but I was down with the sickness, so couldn't really get stuff done. But now, hey, you heard me laugh. That's kind of what I sounded like. So
hey, I'm not unpredictable.
So I've got a few videos going up, basically a couple of Let's Plays. I'm going to be doing a couple of reviews or two, and I'm going to be getting those up. Hopefully, they will be up by this weekend. Fingers crossed, as always. But if they're not, you can always find updates as to why down there at Little Big Ham. You can also find me. Somewhere down here. And you can always find me on YouTube at Jonathan Studios.
Awesome. Let's see. Where can people find me? Anywhere Bunny 3000 is, you can pretty much find me. I'm still doing a little bit of work on my Dreamcade replay. It's not going the way I thought it was supposed to go. I know I dropped a vid on the unboxing, and there's been like cobwebs since the vid. Mainly because I haven't really gotten it to quite work the way I wanted it to work. So hopefully I can get that squared away soon. In the meantime, I think I've got an article that should be going up on fanbros.com. Probably, I hope by the end of the week, that kind of touches on some of the stuff I'm hoping I can pull down as a ROM on Dreamcade Replay. So we'll see how that goes. So I'll hopefully be able to get that out by the end of the week. Hopefully I will be able to get some streaming going. Being a dad is hard. So, especially during the summer. So we'll see whether I can squeeze that back into the regular schedule that I usually have on Wednesday nights, usually around 9:30, 10-ish or whatever, on Twitch, typically under the banana. And every once in a while, I'm able to get it going with the Geek Swag podcast on for Heat Magazine. I kind of try to tie that stuff in from time to time and do Let's Plays on Wednesdays, but we'll see how that goes also. But ladies and gentlemen, as usual, you will find us, the Shaded Pixels podcast, here where you're watching right now on this bat channel at this bat time, this bat place. You know what it be. You know what we do, ladies and gentlemen.
And you can always catch, if you can't catch us live, you can always catch the video on demand at Facebook, on YouTube.
Yes. Hallelujah. Amen. That's what he said. Yeah, what he said. All day, every day. Shaded Pixels podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. We out.
Thank you.